Hi, obviously I'm Jay Fallon. This is the slippery slope. So there's been a lot of stories I wanted to talk about, and I'm like, man, I can't. I haven't got enough time, but I have to go through this list of stories. For one, I want to talk about how, well, some of them are just disappointing. You sit there going, how is this even possible? But so many things happening, so many things changing around the world, and sometimes it feels like the media are just throwing things at us and not wanting anyone to question or think about anything. Just accept everything that's going on, and some of it is very strange, I think. And some of it's nonsensical. Doesn't matter. But let's start inside the $10 billion futuristic city built for a mass human experiment. It just seems a little strange to me that this is the second city. This one barely rated a mention a couple of years ago. But in Japan, they started building this a few years ago. Just a big experiment that they've decided to do. Ambitious plans to build a utopian, sustainable city at the foot of an active Japanese volcano are well on their way to completion. First announced in 2021, Toyota has been hard at work constructing their Woven City, just miles away from Mount Fuji. This is pictured over here. Mount Fuji on the island of Honshu, with the first of 2,000 anticipated residents now expected to move in before the end of the year. Marketed as a mass human experiment, it we are this world. Okay, before I say anything else, marketed as a mass human experiment, Woven City will provide a living laboratory for Toyota to test prototypes of their renewable and energy efficient self driving vehicles dubbed e pallets. Pallets? Yeah. The car manufacturer expects to gather data from the use of these driverless cars. Guided by sensors and lights, buildings, and roads across the city, this will help them better understand patterns. It seems like the world is adamant they want to gather everyone in, close everyone down. We've got these 15-minute cities. We've got this city in Japan. We've got the line which is being constructed. The the powers that be are, but they can't be stopped. They just keep building all these things, pushing everyone into these cities, controlling, conducting experiments, telling us they're conducting experiments. But it's all good. There's nothing to see here. We're just going to analyze everyone, keep everyone under constant surveillance, just for us to gather data. And what's it all being used for? For the manufacture of vehicles? Or is it being used to control, to learn how they can actually bring humanity under complete and utter submission? Seems very strange. And why are people not talking about this anymore? I don't know. There's got to be more to it. Let me know what you think. Anyway, next story I want to go through. This that came up in Australia. Quick headline. Now, I hardly saw anything about this but came through from Sky News. Sinister level of censorship. The Australian government, they've threatened to fine X over a post. So Panahi has talked about this. She said that the fine would be about around $800,000 if they fail to take down a critical post from Canadian man Chris Elston about a United Nations trans expert. What the flip? How does this happen? The Australian government, we live our Australian government is such an authoritarian. It's full of despots, full of despots. We, they love to dictate to everyone else, including their own people. And I'm not convinced the Liberals would have done this, but they are just as bad in a lot of other things. We saw what ScoMo did. He just basically took his hands off everything and said, "Oh, it's not me, it's the states." A couple of years ago, it's not me. Don't blame me. It's just the states. He was just as bad. Such a totalitarian attitude. And the attitude of a despot that you can think that someone, a Canadian, has put up a post about a trans person, and then you can threaten to fine a company because they won't take the post down. So the alleged offense here was sharing information about a transgender man who works for the World Health Organization. You got to, I mean, who thinks he's really making these threats here? You can see what's happened. The WHO has rung up Albanese and said, hey, can you do us a favor? Start threatening X. Next story, let's go through. This, actually, I'm going to leave that to last because it's a bit more lighthearted. This story. Now, I spoke a while ago saying that I believe Australia, I believe the world is actually, I think we are in the midst of World War III. I think World War III has started. Everyone's just using their proxies, obviously. But I think the world is in the midst of World War III. So this has come out a few days ago now. French president's remarks stir concerns in Washington. So he said a few things. He's basically, confronted Russia, French President Emmanuel Macron. His recent statements on the potential deployment of foreign troops to Ukraine have sparked concern among American officials, fearing a direct confrontation with Russia. That's the thing. They don't want a direct confrontation, but we are already in confrontation. According to Bloomberg, citing a source familiar with the discussions between allies, Macron's comments were intended to prompt Vladimir Putin to reconsider his actions. No, they weren't. They're just designed to stir the pot. NATO officials involved in discussions on Ukraine feel that the statements may have had the opposite effects. No joke. Bloomberg sources who prefer to remain anonymous said Macron's comments were also not very smart from an operational security perspective. Now, this is the line. Draw your attention to. The agency noted that several countries had already secretly deployed some contingents to Ukraine. Secretly? It's not that much of a secret. We've known. We've all known. We know that there's Australian troops in that vicinity training Ukrainians. We've known for ages that, the British are in the vicinity training. We are at war. They're just saying the quiet part out loud. They've secretly deployed contingents to Ukraine because we are at war. You bring in Ukraine and Russia, you bring in Gaza and Israel, you bring in how Chinese are supporting Russia in some ways, you bring in the Iranian government, and then all their little offsiders who are attacking from a distance, attacking the states, attacking anyone else who doesn't want to fall in line, doesn't want to support Gaza. Not that they care about the people who live in Gaza, they just hate Israel. And then you've got all these nufties that stand up and protest. Oh, it's genocide. Well, you obviously don't know the meaning of genocide, but hey. But again, they're just saying the quiet part out loud. They've secretly deployed contingents to Ukraine because we are in World War III. And again, no one is actually saying it out loud. No one's standing up saying, hey, what is actually going on here? The world is at war. We're not talking about the bigger picture. No one's admitting it. And there's more about this. The controversy surrounds Macron's support for a Czech initiative to purchase ammunition for Ukraine from non-EU countries, while Macron voiced his support last month. France has yet to announce any financial contribution to the effort. In response to the debate over his comments on deploying Western troops to Ukraine, Macron refused to back down. He's trying to be this leader. He's trying to be a leader. I don't think he is a great leader, but he's trying to stand up. If anyone ever stood up and said, "Hey, we need a one world leader," anyone want to put their hand up, you guarantee Macron's going to be there going, "Yeah, me." He'll do it. He's that arrogant. He'd want to do it. And he's insisted that his statements were well thought out, but also stressing that France would not follow the logic of escalation in relations with Moscow. Strange things that are happening. Next story, let's move on. Change of pace, but one that I think we should be talking about because I absolutely hate daylight savings. Top scientists call for an end to daylight savings time. I lived in Victoria for quite a few years early in my married life, and I hated daylight savings. I could never understand the logic behind it. It didn't seem to make sense. All these people would come up with these arguments. Oh, yeah, it's good for this, good for that, and it's like, like, seriously, if that's your argument, it supposedly gives you an extra hour of daylight in the day. It doesn't. You it doesn't give you anything extra. So scientists are calling for an end to daylight savings. I'll just read one section. This doctor, Megan Crawford, a sleep researcher from the University of Strathclyde and member of the British Sleep Society, she said that there's an increased risk of cardiovascular events, including risk of self-harming behaviors. That's weird. And increased mortality in the days after switching our clocks. Those are all linked to the loss of that 1 hour of sleep. She believes that standard time should be reinstated and used all year round due to the short term impact of the clock change, the potential impact across the summer, and the detrimental impact of potential permanent daylight savings times. There's there's a lot more to this story, but it seems like it's so bad for your health. And yet, our government's still adamant they want to keep doing it. I get, man, again, can't talk properly. We've had so many people from New South Wales and Victoria and that move up to Queensland. I bet you we'll start seeing another push from them to get daylight savings. And I'll be as polite, as I can be. If that's what you want, just move back to New South Wales and Victoria. If that's what you want, it's not good for your health. Anyway, next story. Change the pace again. Fundamentalists. I personally, I hate it when they use these terms. They want to label everyone. They're fundamentalists. Well, just anyway, fundamentalists target New Zealand's Rainbow Street crossing. So obviously, this is all to do with drag time. This picture here shows all these young children standing in front of a drag queen. This is a man pretending to be a woman. He's put on woman face and acting like I don't know, can't say anything else. But, people defend this kind of behavior. Rainbow Street crossings in New Zealand have emerged as an unlikely flashpoint, with fundamentalist Christians throwing white paint over them to protest rainbow storytime readings. On Monday, adherents to Destiny Church blocked traffic and painted over a crossing in Gisborne. The rainbow actually comes from God. Gisborne-based pastor Leighton Packer said in a video posted online, as fellow Destiny adherents painted over the road. If anyone from New Zealand watches this podcast and you know anything about this church, or you have any kind of interaction with them, or you happen to know this pastor, please pass on my details. I'd love to talk to him about this stance that they're taking. So after the paint was washed away, 5 members of the group were arrested by police when they returned to the scene to try again. Look, if you watched any of my podcasts, you probably understand that I don't go along with the whole LGBT rainbow community ideology. I think it's dangerous. I think it's demonic. The rainbow did come from God. It's spoken about in the Bible. Here. The churches are standing up for it. I think you need to be salt, light in the world. You need to actually stand up and say, hey, this is wrong. This is wrong. This is the truth. And yet, you read the whole story. Authorities in New Zealand are just, they're blinded. And I think it all comes back to they just have this inability to think logically anymore. It's a part of having a mindset. They just got this inability, a lower quality thinking. I think it all comes back to Romans 1. We'll go on to the next story. Well, this is part of the story I'm not going to bring up. I don't want to give any more attention to the ABC. However, during the week, I was listening to ABC radio while I'm driving around, and the ABC are interviewing Bruce Pascoe and his new book. They're talking about his new book. I think it's called Black Duck or something like that. I'm sitting there going, surely, is this like surely the ABC are not talking to Bruce Pascoe as if he is a legitimate Indigenous author, are they? And yet here they are, still standing by, still selling this rubbish narrative that Bruce Pascoe is somehow Indigenous. And yet all the facts seem to show, the facts seem to show that he is not Indigenous at all. His great grandmother, whoever he thinks was this Indigenous woman, the facts seem to appear that seem to show that she was actually from Britain. She's from the UK. And yet the ABC is still, I'm not going to talk about their story, but here, Bruce Pascoe, author of the best-selling Dark Emu, has publicly claimed to be Aboriginal since a critic marked him down for being white. Here is a chronology, precious, of his transformation into an Aboriginal. How can ABC journalists still defend him? This story has been extensively updated with startling new information about Bruce Pascoe's 1993 search. I'm not going to go into the whole story, but he is not Aboriginal. That seems to be the facts laid out. He's not Aboriginal. So stop. ABC, Australia, the Australian Broadcasting Corporation. You are a taxpayer funded corporation, media outlet. How can you uphold these lies? And if Bruce Pascoe is so adamant that he is Indigenous of any amount at all, have a DNA test. It's pretty simple. Get a DNA test and you will be able to prove it 100%. You will put any doubts to rest. I say you haven't taken any tests. He's not. If he had taken a test, he'd be up there waving it from the top of sticking Sydney Story Bridge. He'd be up there on top of the bridge waving about this document saying, "Yep, see, approved it. I've got 1% Aboriginality." Sticking to the ABC, and just how much of a filthy, rotting, lying organization they are. So Dick Smith had made a few claims. So the ABC came out and apparently they'd fact checked him. But now they've had to make a stunning backflip as it's forced to apologize to Dick Smith for flawed nuclear energy fact check. The ABC has apologized after the outraged businessman wrote to it demanding corrections to a fact check report on renewable energy and nuclear power he said was full of lies. Mr. Smith said the report, which was written by RMIT, so Royal Melbourne Institute of Technology, ABC fact check, stated that businessman Dick Smith had thrown his support behind calls to introduce nuclear generated power to Australia, rejecting renewable-led electricity generation in the process. He wrote to ABC Managing Director David Anderson to say that this was not true, leading to a backflip and apology from the national broadcaster within hours. Here's the thing with the ABC. They cannot be trusted. They are not bipartisan. They have an agenda, and it's not a hidden agenda. They have a definite agenda. They are definitely on the left. They have their ideology. They have their beliefs. Okay, and they are a religious organization. They follow the religion of evolution. They follow the religion of LGBTW rainbow community, trans ideology. They follow the left wokest religion. That is their ideology. That is their religion. That is their belief system. They cannot be bipartisan about anything. They do not. They have given up reporting truthfully a long time ago. It's disheartening, it's discouraging, it's disgusting. They should not be funded with public money anymore. Okay, let's go to the last story. And look, this story it's very cute and very sad at the same time. But we have to end on something a bit more lighthearted. This story, if you're in Australia, you would have seen this. This has been the unlikely couple, a little staffy dog, and the magpie. And now, the reason why I wanted to talk about this, I think the story is very cute. I'm a little disappointed in the person who went and reported this and got the magpie taken away. I think she's a bit of a Karen, to be honest. Authorities seize Instagram famous magpie ending friendship with English staffy. I've got a staffy for a dog. She is so cute and she's so friendly, very friendly. I could see her doing this with the bird as well. Anyway, so, in short, a wildlife carer says it took the Department of Environment too long to remove a magpie from potential harm. This bird had been living with these people for near on 4 years. So, a veteran wildlife carer says authorities endangered the life of a magpie by failing to act on its unlikely pairing with an English staffy. Now, after nearly 4 years, what is the danger? Hundreds of thousands of online fans followed the relationship between Molly the magpie and Peggy the rescue dog since 2021. Gorgeous picture. But that came to an end when Molly was voluntarily surrendered to the Department of Environment, Science and Innovation, DESI, earlier this month. The department said the magpie was taken from the wild and kept unlawfully with no permit, license, or authority. This is one of the most ridiculous laws I've ever heard. But anyway, that's Queensland. That's Australia. Wildlife carer, Kat Cokes. Now, Kat Cokes, she thinks she's the protagonist in her own little dream movie. She thinks she's the hero in this narrative. She's nothing. She's the villain. She she's the villain. She's the one that goes and, everyone's having a good time. When everyone during the pandemic, when everyone was out protesting, or when someone walked out of their house without a mask on, she'd be the one there on the phone looking out the window, calling police, saying, "Up, my neighbor just walked outside, has no mask. I don't think they're vaccinated. You better go and arrest them." That is Cat Cokes. So she started making complaints after nearly 3 years of inaction. The first complaint I made was more than 11 months ago. For nearly 12 months, the department has sat on this, and I'm a bit tired of Desi not responding, not being responsible. She said animals should not be used as clickbait. This is a wild bird. In the long term, it's not going to want to stay and play with pets. It's a magpie. The funny thing is, it had been living there for near 4 years. So if that's not long term, what is? Cat Cokes, Karen Cokes. She says it's not cute if that animal is suffering long term detriment and most likely going to go next door and be ripped up by a dog. What is the imagination of this woman? She's got the poor bird being ripped up by an imaginary dog next door. The bird's been living with the dog. The bird flies. I'm crying out loud. But she's got it being ripped up by some imaginary dog next door. Look at that photo. How cute is that? Come on. Gold Coast woman Juliette Wells said she was out walking Peggy in 2020 when she came across Molly as a chick on the ground. She said she tried to reunite the bird with its parents, but had no success. So there you go. She's tried to do the right thing. She tried to help the bird, had no success. She brought it home to help. The bond between the animals is so close, but under Queensland law, a sick or injured native animal must go into the care of a person with a valid rehabilitation permit. See, this is the problem with bureaucracy. We come across and say, "Oh no, you've got to have a permit before you help a sick or injured animal. You got to have a permit. You're only someone with a permit can do any good in this world. And if we don't recognize it, if we're not getting money for it, if we don't recognize it, you can't do anything to help." And this idea, I mean, this lady's not out walking thinking, I want to start a successful Instagram Instagram page. I wonder if I can find a sick or dying bird that I can rescue and then bring it in. I mean, that's some long-term thinking there. I'll bring it in, I'll feed it, nurture it back to health, I'll pair it up with my dog, and then we'll become Insta famous and I'll make Insta money. Really? Someone goes out walking, finds an injured bird, thinks they want to do the right thing, and then you've got Karen Cat Cokes thinking, "Oh no, she's going to get killed by an imaginary dog. I've got to do something about it." What is the world coming to? Anyway, that's the wrap up. That's the news wrap up from the slippery slope for this week. All the things I wanted to talk about, and I think I just haven't got time to go through all these stories individually. What is the world coming to? Do you think Karen Cat Cokes was out of line and she shouldn't have reported these people? Do you think they really wanted to just do this because they wanted to become Insta famous and get Insta money? Do you think Macron has not so secret desires to become the world leader? And do you think that we are actually in World War III? Do you think the ABC, don't even know what to say about the ABC. They're a media outlet for propaganda. They are possibly just an outlet. They're possibly just the Australian arm of the World Economic Forum and the World Health Organization. Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think Australia is run by inept leaders who for some reason think that they have the authority or the ability, they've got this, they are full of such narcissism that they think that they can demand a fine of $800,000 because someone places a post on X, and then they demand that X pays a fine. Do you think we actually live in a place where we're run by little despots, actually just taking their orders by someone else, other darker forces? Do you think that daylight savings has always been bad for us? We've always known it, and yet we always continue on with it because authorities don't really care. Let me know what you think. These are all the stories that I looked at, and I thought we need to talk more about it. Oh, and last thing, what about all these cities that are popping up? The 15-minute cities, these experimental cities when they want to keep everyone gathered in close confines, conduct surveillance on people, experiment on people, take down the data of everyone. The Japanese city, we've got the Saudi Arabia, the line. Strange times, strange times. Let me know what you think. I'm Jay Fallon. This is, this is The Slippery Slope.
Still see the way you move. Your body shimmers in that little black dress as you walk across the room. Now I've got nothing left to say. I've got one thing on my mind. You still take my breath away. Your body moves me through space and time.